everybody, welcome back to Tazzcraft, and today's episode is going to be huge. Oh yes, part 2 of my challenge for Tazzcrafters. If you haven't seen part 1, I can kind of basically summarize what's going on. I challenged everybody in Tazzcraft to make a team. They, whether or not they made a team, it doesn't really matter. If they are not a part of a team, they are not a part of this at all. They get no prizes. There's nothing for somebody who doesn't pick a team already, and if you are part of the team, you are part of the team. You are allowed to drop out, but if you do drop out, you get nothing. So I really want to encourage people to get out of their comfort zone, to show off their building skills and their teamwork skills. In fact, I made an entire Discord server so that people were more inclined to work together and in a format that they were isolated and weren't having to jump through Discord hoops. So what I wanted to do was kind of explain my thought process and what the actual themes are. This is the theme reveal, and the first thing I want to do is go over some of the complications of working in a team. So the first thing that I wanted to do when I decided to design this is I wanted it to be a team-oriented thing. I didn't think there was enough in terms of collaboration. I didn't think there was enough of that on the server in general, and I really wanted to promote that being consistent throughout, right? So when it comes down to that, we have the problem where we can't pick genre, because if we pick a genre or an architecture style for building, what we're going to see is that people who specialize and get their specialization, well, they're going to win pretty much by default. There's nothing else you can do about that, because, well, they're good at it, and if they're all good at it, then they're all going to be on the same page, and that's that. It's over and done with at that point. The opposing side of that is that if we look at a team that only picks their skills based on modern architecture, and they don't get modern architecture, then they're all at a disadvantage. And you can kind of see where I was going with things. When people originally asked me what the themes were going to be, I intentionally did not tell them. I didn't want any sort of hints, any sort of thing like that. But people decided to divide themselves in a way where people who are good at one would take the lead if the style was... So, like, there's going to be a mixing of styles, and that's going to be really, really good. It's an opportunity for a lot of growth and a lot of communication, and I love it. It's fantastic. So I had the challenge of coming up with themes that were not based in strict architecture. And when we're talking about basing a challenge in terms of a building challenge in general, picking an architecture style is kind of the default, right? Like, whoever builds the best medieval building, whoever builds the best whatever. Again, I did the 8x8 challenge. Whoever builds the best building in an 8x8 area is the winner. So what we have to do is associate we have to associate something with architecture that is not architecturally based. And in order to do that, I really wanted to take words and I wanted to take a series of words and really be able to incorporate them all under the same categories and have it so that there was plenty of art in defense of the position that I put out. So what I decided to do was I decided to model the entire building criteria after Magic the Gathering. In Magic the Gathering, it's a card game. It's just like Pokemon. I shouldn't say just like Pokemon, but it's like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And there's art on the cards. And I believed using some of these terms specifically from a set called Guilds of Ravnica, where they sat down and broke down the color pie in terms of 2 colors apiece. And when they did that, they created ideologies for these particular factions. And, or I shouldn't say factions, these guilds, because that's what they're literally called. It's the Guilds of Ravnica. And what I decided to do was I decided to take 4 of them, 4 of the Guilds of Ravnica, put them in most basic terms, what their guild title was, and put them in the box. But the idea wasn't for them to copy Ravnica builds. That was not the idea at all. The idea was to build a building, specifically a tower, to build a tower based on the ideologies those guilds have. So, the big reveal of all of the guilds that will be used in this building competition, I'm going to reveal 4, and I'm not going to reveal who got what. I will leave that to whoever decides to actually make videos on this challenge to explain what they got and how they're going to approach it. That is not for me. I don't want to be spoiled on things. I think that me going in blind and really trying to embrace the wonder and the theming of everything, I think that's a wonderful thing, and I don't want to do anybody a disservice by peeking in on exactly what they're doing. The one thing I do want to do is I want to keep an eye on how the teams are working out and make sure that the team dynamic doesn't sway too far one side or the other. I realize that a lot of people have learned group projects and stuff in school, realize one person ends up doing most of the work, and I want to encourage all sorts of views. I believe that sharing information is the best way to grow. It's the best way to uncover a specific truth. I think it's necessary in today's society that everybody gets a voice, and that voice is expressed. That's the important part, and what we don't necessarily see all the time, specifically in group projects, where not everybody's voice is necessarily expressed. And it's not even that it's not heard, but that people don't necessarily say anything to begin with. And I really want to put everybody on the same playing field in that aspect. So, we're to the themes. Are you ready? Oh, yes. First theme we have is the Golgari. Golgari is a very, very interesting guild. So I decided to put the name of the guild itself, and then the 3 things that you can take from that guild that explain their basic philosophy. And their philosophy is death, rebirth, and growth. So death, rebirth, and growth is essentially the life cycle, specifically the end of the life cycle, and going back and turning into a new life cycle. And when you think of Golgari, typically you think of, but it's not limited to, but like mushrooms and basic bacteria, and essentially moving from decay and becoming new again, and rebuilding itself up. So like overgrown and like overgrown, rotting. Everything that dies goes into the earth, and the earth itself produces plants and grows and becomes better because of it. So that's kind of the idea behind Golgari. The next one we have is Azorius. Azorius is law, order, and control. And a lot of this comes down to legislation. It comes down to ideology. If the system is perfect, then how do things work, and how do we judge other people? And I'm sure a lot of this comes up with mainly I believe people will think of Parliament or the legislature, which is totally valid. That is definitely a route. But you have to remember that legislation all harkens all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia. It goes back to ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, so there's a whole bunch of different places you can pull from that all give the idea of law and order through very similar ideologies and through very different ideologies, right? Like a parliament building in the UK is different than a courthouse in the US. So it's not about what genre you pick for it, it's that there are certain things that lend themselves to feeling more law, order, and control in terms of a layout of a building, or or like just purely encasing that ideology and trying to cement it in some sort of way. The third is Dimir. Dimir is typically blue and black, and they are based around deception, shadow, and secrecy. So they're very much trying to deceive people, or they're like a guild of assassins. I don't know if you've ever seen Assassin's Creed, where they have a facade. They might have a facade. It might be more like Skyrim, where they just have a place underground. I'm not saying that the tower can be underground, but they might have like secret passages, or like different levels that people can find their way around in. Perhaps there's a lot of symbolism in what their building style has to revolve around. So there's a lot of ways you can take it, but trying to be more than just straightforward, you kind of just have to figure out how to add an extra dimension onto whatever you're doing. Again, the best case scenario, you could literally just make a hole in the ground and be like, well, I'll cover it up, and then look, it works. Obviously, that's not going to work for this, but I do believe there's a lot to that, specifically that portion of the color pie being blue and black, being very secretive, being very like dark and mysterious. I think there are plenty of ways to incorporate that in all sorts of building styles. I know that there are some very, very good games out there. The Assassin's Creed series, near the end of the campaigns, where there's a whole bunch of like a light facility, and then there's kind of the Templars, and they have a very, very dark kind of behind the scenes feel to a lot of their things. So it might not just be that the architecture itself, maybe the architecture is completely undermined by the atmosphere, using more dark materials, or using again, more like the soul lanterns and just kind of a spooky, creepy, something's not quite right vibe. There's a lot to it, and I don't want to unpack all of it. I do believe there's a lot there that people can look at and take inspiration from, and I'm really excited for Dimir. I think Dimir is actually going to be one of the coolest buildings. And then we have Rakdos, and Rakdos is going to be awesome. I am so excited to give someone Rakdos, and if I get stuck with it, I don't care. I'm going all out. Rakdos is amazing in their philosophy. They're all about death, destruction, and war. They're there, they're structured, and they're going to get things done. Not necessarily structured. It might be a little bit more chaotic. They might have a little bit more of a give and take. Black in the color pie is all about power at a cost, and sometimes that cost is practicality, sometimes it's whatever. But the death and destruction, I mean, that's more it's more like impending doom, right? Like there's a philosophy out there about it's pretty much doomsayers, correct? Where people are constantly pushing the line of we're going to force the next step, and the next step of the end times is going to be this, and that's kind of their philosophy. They're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and the death and destruction, they're just going to leave it in their wake, and they're going to continue to go. And I think that really, really, really speaks to how you can structure a building in that way. They're very chaotic. Red is the color of chaos. Again, black has power at a cost, and black is like demonic pacts. Red has, again, the chaos thing where random things happen. So they're not exactly structured, but they're very sporadic with things. And again, I picked all of these things because they have a lot of artwork behind them. So there are plenty of references people can use for inspiration. And even though it doesn't fit a particular, even though they're very abstract in terms of ideas, I do believe they can be brought into an architectural state. I believe that people are really going to like this. I highly doubt anybody is going to get any of these themes and be disappointed with the product that they come up with, because again, if you want to, you can literally make an ancient Roman building and then go, okay, how do I make it so that this is rebirthed, right? Like, how do I make it so that it's reclaimed by the earth and the earth has given it new life? Or literally any of the philosophies fill that exact same role, which is you take a building, and this building has to be warped in a way to fit the ideologies that are presented. And I'm super excited. I really, really hope that you guys enjoyed this kind of deep dive into the planning and the themes themselves. If you have questions and are a part of this, even if you're not a part of this, but you have questions about creating your own themes or how these themes can be expanded upon, one of these themes, it looks like I'm going to be stuck with. I wanted at least 4 towers, but it looks like that might not go so good. I wanted 4 teams. I've only gotten 3 right now. One of them is still shorthanded, one I believe. But I wanted to go over these and kind of give a general view of what each one stood for. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And again, I'm open to all comments, criticisms, whatever. As long as you have an opinion, I ask you please voice it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, take it easy.
Hey,